have her. Pythios might try anyway, or at the very least, take her, imprison her, use her. So yes, there was no doubt in her mind. Today was the last day of her life. But could she save the fire inside her and the magic that came with it to perform one last desperate act to protect her daughters before the final blow came? Acrid bile burned her throat as it rose from the pit of her stomach. She forced it down. Now was not the time to allow fear into her heart. Fear could wait for those last precious seconds of life, when she'd fought until she could no longer move, when she'd done everything she could. Maybe not even then. Not fear for herself. Fear for the 4 precious women she'd be leaving behind. If not for them, death would be a welcome relief. Then she could finally join Zallant in the afterlife where he waited for her. Seraphina closed her eyes, reaching for the power that had lain dormant inside her for too many years, stoking an inferno, the flames licking her insides with a pleasant warmth she'd almost forgotten. "Turn around," the monster behind her commanded. "Now." Frustration lined the edges of Pythios's words, and she smiled. Even now she could defy him. She took some small consolation from the thought. Slowly, as if careful not to spook a wild animal, she pivoted and blinked. The years had not been kind to her enemy. When she'd last seen him, his body had already started rotting, having passed into that age when an unmated dragon's body broke down, becoming susceptible to disease, deterioration, or insanity. Sometimes all of the above. For Pythios, disease had taken his body in the form of skin decay. The flesh hung from his bones as though gravity had dragged at him so long the tissue lost elasticity. His eyes were sunken into his head, the reddish-brown irises, the hallmark of a red dragon, now milky and faded with age. Even the king's brand, the symbol of Pythios's house, appeared faded where it marked the flesh on his hand between his thumb and forefinger. How was he still alive? Despite his now decrepit appearance, she knew she'd never overpower him physically. She'd be willing to bet he no longer did his own fighting, though, and likely hadn't in a while, which might make him slower, easier to surprise. Seraphina lifted her chin, ready to buy herself time. "You look like shit." His lips pulled back in what she guessed was supposed to be a smile. "How very American. You are as lovely as ever." He sniffed the air. "And you smell like ambrosia." Again, she had to hold down the bile threatening to spew from her. Seraphina focused on the fire inside herself, the gathering power undulating under her skin. If she wasn't visibly glowing yet, she would be any second. She directed a small amount of energy into a single thought that she sent to her daughters. The time has come. They knew what those words meant. They knew what they had to do. Since the day of their birth, a day of joy devoured by a despair so deep she'd hardly been able to push her babies out of her body, Seraphina had been preparing them for this eventuality. Pythios, still so arrogant he hadn't yet restrained her, continued his demands. "Time to give me what you denied me more than 500 years ago." "My duty was to Zallant, my destined mate," she spat. "You will never be my king." Pythios's neck worked as though he were swallowing back his rage. The column of his throat moving like a serpent was trapped inside. "I no longer need your submission or your body." An icy shard of terror pierced her heart at the words, and the sneer curling his lip. What did he mean? "I'll take your power and your life." Take her power? Could he? She'd never heard of such a thing, but his threat lent urgency.